lady, I don't think, realised that. And she just fell.
Be careful.
Yeah.
Safety and
Yeah.
insurance.
The other thing, and I suppose this will come up under the car park when we discuss it, but they have been doing wheelies up in the car park. I don't know if anybody's been to have a look at the mess they've made, but hopefully the locking of the gate will put a stop to it. But Paula Baker stopped me the other day because I think you know about this, Bob. They are concerned that people are using their field now, not necessarily to walk through to get to the path. They are actually exercising their dogs off lead in that field where they keep the llamas, and it was never envisaged that it would be a dog exercise field. I was thinking about it today, and I know it's nothing to do with us, and I suppose the harshest way, or most expensive way, is to apply to reroute the footpath around the edge of the field, but then that would involve costs for the bakers.
That's where the footpath is, around the edge of the field. It is around the perimeter.
It is?
Yeah, that's where
So
it
the
is.
route of the path,
It's not through the middle.
if you
Is it
follow
not?
the hard section, which you can see where there's like two tracks
Yes.
that go down towards their fence, if you follow, that's the line of the path, which then goes down to the fence and then runs along the side of their drive. So people should not be going diagonally.
The problem is it's been so heavily walked across the middle.
Well, I
not down the sides.
walk across the middle every day, more or less, but
That's why they put up the sign saying go to around the perimeter, because that's where it is. Because I think she had spoken to me about this maybe last year or so, and I suggested that they might mow a section of it or put up some markers or something. But she said that was something they would, that they may consider, or putting up a fence or something like that. And because because the path actually goes straight down, so that the style, which I don't think there's one there at the moment, they're going to reinstate it, and then it goes across the top of their driveway around the house and straight down. So the path, if you like, follows that route, and then it could go that way instead. But it isn't across the middle of the field.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
All I was concerned with, and people do exercise their dogs off the lead in that field, and I think it's rather unfair on the bakers. And I think probably to suggest some form of large sign on that gate, just to advise them, you can walk across this field to gain your next footpath.
I think that's something they all probably the landowner ought to do, didn't they? Because it's
I think so. I can't see any other way, unless you actually divert the footpath, hugging the hedge.
It's supposed to go around it is supposed to be around the perimeter, and they did have a sign up there on that gate saying, "Please stick to the perimeter, keep your dog on a lead," and all this kind of stuff. But I think somebody took the sign down, or the signs were vandalised or something. There have been issues, but I've seen people up there. They pull up, they get the dog out of the car, they throw the ball for them. I've seen it loads of times, but I don't think we can do much about that.
In the past had signs that said, "Please keep your dogs
Mm-hmm.
on the lead."
Yeah.
Which at least if they were doing that, while they're not doing this, run free.
I think they think because it's out of sight, they can get away with it. That's the thing. But
ultimately, whose responsibility is it to?
This is what I was
advertise
going
that?
to say. I think it's awkward for us to get involved, isn't it? Because
Technically, it's the landowner,
But
but we, as I say, again, styles and gates technically is the landowner, but the parish is always trying to take a positive view towards that on the basis that the landowners have to put up with people walking across their land. It's the public right of way, so they have to put up with it anyway. But at least as a way of trying to be helpful, we've generally tried to be supportive where we can with the footpath stuff.
I mean, it would cost an awful lot of money, and also it would be inconvenient to them actually to put a fence, a footpath fence across parts of their property.
But if they did mow it and highlight where the footpath is,
Yeah.
there's a good chance more people will use it.
When I spoke to them about a year ago and suggested, rather like we did on the path that's off Battleborough Lane, we put a series of white
Oh, yeah, we
posts and said, follow the line
Yeah,
of
and
posts.
some footpath signs. Yeah.
And I mean, that
And
would be,
if there was a sign indicating that's also a map and also a note, then at least probably we're.
well, I could try and get something like that done, which shows the map and get it
Yeah, 'cause
laminated up on the.
I was going to say, I think this is something that I brought up ages ago when we first had with the car park gates and whatever about having a proper sign up there, because the only sign is across the road and it's very faded and water damaged and whatever. It's not obvious to people, and like I said, the path has been so trodden. Any newcomer would think, oh, that's where it goes. But I do think, yeah, it would be good to have that blown up and laminated, but maybe on our gate, and maybe with the sign
Or
saying
even
dogs kept on
their
road.
gate, 'cause
On
when
their
people go
gate,
into the field,
Yeah,
The problem with our gate is it's open most of the time.
So on the other one you raised, Colin, I think in terms of the one on the corner of Windy Bridge, I think at this stage it would be worth having, I went up there the other day and I've got the sort of what 3 words identifiable things, so I can give that to you, Owen. If we can have a word with Chris East to get a gate, we can then ask him if he comes back and says, I thought I'd already given you one for that, I think we can then explain that maybe it's not gone in the right place. But I think if we see if we can get a gate from him, we haven't actually got in stock a standard gate. We've got a couple of kissing gates, which isn't needed on that
so
site.
we want that little opening gate, don't we? Like the one
Yeah,
that,
just a standard gate.
So if councillors are happy that we contact Chris, ask him to
Yes.
supply us with another one of those opening gates to go on the Windy Bridge one, and
Yeah.
say if he comes back and queries it, we'll have that conversation with him as to why we need it. In terms of the going up behind the church, that whole section is the part that we've currently got a quote in from Kenny Gordon as part of the drainage works to regrade that whole section of path going up the Linham's field, which hopefully should then address that. We're currently, I'm waiting for an update on the quote, because the guy from FWAG, originally the works that were being talked about behind the church included a attenuation pond being created. He's now decided he didn't want that as part of the works, just in case at some point the attenuation pond failed and then suddenly you have a whole shitload of water coming out in one go. So he wants that taken out of the estimate, so we've gone back to Kenny and said, can you re-quote without those works in it? And that will then enable this guy from FWAG to go for the funding from Somerset Rivers Authority. And obviously we've got some money set aside in our budget this year for that project, but we do need some grant funding to come in from them as well. But that will certainly be part of that whole section being redone.
Yeah, there's a nice new fence actually being put up.
Yes.
Richard's side.
On Richard's side, so
Yes.
I don't know if that's going to interfere with your works.
I think it might mean that the drain that was possibly going to be slightly closer to the path is now going to have to be more in Richard's field, his side of that fence, rather than
Okay. So,
our side, because there's not a lot of room left.
no, it's all right, jumble in there. Okay.
No.
can I just answer what Colin just said about the car park? Because obviously,
We
sorry.
can do that under, oh no, we'll take it now anyway, carry on.
I noticed he pulled it up. Yeah, because further to, obviously we put the sign up and whatever, and there is an issue with people spinning donuts, and Nick Diamond just said it's disturbing her at night, it's disturbing the houses. I've actually spoken to a friend of mine who's a police officer working out of Burnham, and she is on nights this week, and she's going to go up there when she finishes or on her way back to the station at nights and just have a look round. But she has also said that because our bin up there has been graffitied and there is no damage to the surface of the car park, that is classed as criminal damage. And she said if Owen was to ring 101, give them what 3 words for the car park, they will have to send patrols out because it's classed as criminal damage, and she said they will have to look at it and just say what's going on up there, just so they have a bit of a police presence. So, but obviously that's something that, yeah.
Our members happy then that we
Contact
are
Mark.
going to do the 101 and get that
Yeah.
recorded. Thank you
Yeah.
for that, Amanda. Excellent. Okay. On the fence that's going up that Colin mentioned that's still damaged, we heard back from, because we contacted the contractor who did the fence work for us further up.
That was Steve Pym.
Yes.
I heard nothing from Steve at all.
Can we chase him again?
Yeah.
Because we did previously
Absolutely.
asked for him to get on with that.
Steve Pym.
Okay. Anything else under footpaths? Anything on highways?
The only thing that I've noticed is that 2 or 3 of these speed cameras, speed advisors, are not working, presumably because of battery problems.
I did bring it
You
up.
did, Colin. Have we had a word with Stuart to get the details of those batteries?
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't actually come back to me on that, although I have noticed and I've seen it myself with my own eyes, they're not actually working properly.
No.
They're working, but they're not working properly. And what's it,
There's just a red dot now to show.
So
okay, so I'll check it out with Nicholas.
contact with Stuart Nichols.
Find out what's going on there.
Well, basically, also, I think we wanted to get the detail of what the batteries were, didn't we?
Yeah, we
Because they
mentioned
might
it
need
because
sourcing.
I think we can source them
Yeah.
ourselves.
Probably low cost.
Yes.
Battery details.
Yeah.
Okay, Malcolm.
I believe that our colleague covers Mark and various other villages around the area with speed cameras.
Oh, Stuart Nichols.
Yeah.
He is engaged. Yeah, there's a number of parishes that have him.
Now, are we ensured that the batteries that we have got or we intend to buy will be used for our cameras and not theirs? Or will they go into the pool?
I've no idea.
I think we could raise
It's not even occurred to me actually, but yeah, I'll check it out and find out.
That was a good point to
All
raise.
on them. It's a shame in a way we haven't got the solar ones actually, because certainly in North Curry we've got 3 in North Curry and they never move. They're all solar panel.
Yeah.
I don't know whether they can be converted to solar, but
But also, you've then got the whole moving of the panels as well. We
Yeah.
had some
We
fun with
had
that in
that.
the previous version. I think the ones where they keep them stationary, like Mark,
Yeah.
but they qualified under a different.
Yeah.
They generally don't allow those sort of things to be.
I'll have a chat with Stuart on the telephone and see what sort of things out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on the highways?
I was approached this morning by 2 people and asked if I would raise something tonight. They don't want to give their names, but they are concerned on a safety issue, which is pulling out of Battleborough Lane. There is a hedge to the right hand side as you pull out, which is sticking out into the road considerably. They've said they've asked me to forward this comment, that you have to pull halfway across the road in order to be able to see from the right hand side what's coming, because there are cars parked opposite usually. Anything that's coming from this direction would have nowhere to go because they've already had to pull halfway across the road. I believe that the landowner, or they say the landowner, has been approached and asked if they will cut the hedge, and they refused. There is some concern as to safety issues on this.
Yeah, I've seen it firsthand going to work. Someone's at the pole right up. It's not their fault, they can't see what's coming, but if you're
Well, this person, one of these people who was speaking to me this morning, said that they've had 2 near misses there recently.
don't hear when the spice maybe.
Our members happy that we drop a
Lines to the landowner.
friendly letter to the resident, at least initially, to ask.
I don't know who it is, so I don't know
Okay.
what the problem is.
On a similar vein, I had a report of a similar situation with Manor Ride. I actually spoke to the residents and they've since trimmed their hedge back within 2 days of being asked to do it, so they were very helpful. And also, just a quick update, I did this property next door to the parish hall, where there is one of these speed signs that's put up. Last time it was up, you could barely see it because there were branches across it. I approached the landowner and they were happy for those to be removed, so they have now been removed. So next time it goes up, it should be clear. But it's like all these things. I think things do seem to be growing an awful lot this season at the moment. So yeah. But okay, we'll follow that one up. Okay. Who was on the village green duty this week? Jane,
It's been interesting this month. Yeah. It's been very busy, and children or youngsters, they have no idea what a rubbish bin is. There's been quite a lot of rubbish to pick up where they've been playing football, bottles and things. But I mean, the bins are being emptied, so that's no excuse. The grass is being cut regularly, it's all fine. And obviously the picnic bins, picnic tables are okay. Obviously there's work in progress with the zip wire, and that's all very well fenced off, very secure. The roundabout area is still out of action, and a new surface has been put in for the seesaw, and that was all good, fine. The keep dogs off grass are now outside the shop, and the grass is being cut there regularly as well. Simon was there the other day. The grass was cut today on the green, so yeah. Car park's tidy. We did have a parent who had a mop from the shop because her dear little children, they were filling up their balloons in the toilets for water bombs. And it sort of flooded the toilet, so she cleaned the toilet. she cleaned it all. Yeah, they're having a wonderful time. So yeah, other than that, it's all fine. Yeah.
Excellent. I think on that same, I think Owen circulated the report we had for the from the GB Sports, which basically picked up the items that we are aware of. Members will also have seen that the turf has gone down behind the mugger.
Yeah.
At the moment, the builders are coming out daily to water it because they put it in just at the time when all the rain stopped. So we're hopeful that will take, but we'll have to keep an eye on that. Obviously, if it doesn't, we'll have to follow that up.
Well, there's kids who are there. The other day I was telling kids to get off there. The parents are watching it, like, there's a reason why that's fenced off. Not fence them in.
The other thing we were going to raise was, you mentioned rubbish. We currently have got, obviously, the bin that's on the green, and we currently have a floating bin, because the bin that used to be in front of the toilets, the bottom had rotted out of it, but they left so it is still working as a bin, but it's just currently sat on the tarmac, which meant when we had the storm a couple of weeks ago, where the strong winds, it ended up apparently on the other side of the road.
Yeah,
So we did talk originally about putting a better bin back in place, sort of like the black and gold one rather than the green. We've had a couple of estimates. So Glasden, for a similar size bin, is £415 excluding VAT for the bin. We've also had a quote for a similar bin from the council, which was £411 excluding VAT, I think that is. Mm-hmm. But that includes fitting and installation, including a concrete base. We were thinking potentially of the location would be right on the corner of the grass where the entrance goes from the car park towards the shop. So in effect, as people go out of the shop to the car park or they're coming in, there is a bin that is very visible, and it won't cost any more for maintenance because of course it will replace the bin that's currently the floating bin. But it's a question for members whether we go ahead and do a replacement bin, and if so, do we go with the council?
It's not money for rubbish, isn't it?
Yes.
No, that sounds like a good idea, especially if they're going to install it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I propose you go for the £411 with a concrete base.
Yeah. Does that include VAT?
No.
No, we'll get the VAT back.
Yes.
So, but no, that doesn't include that. Neither of them did.
When we're on bins, where are we with the litter picking tools? Because I know there was an issue with the one that you were going to order, and then I think David said that he was going to order it, but I don't know if that happened. And
Yeah, I thought David was going to look at it. I mean, the one I originally went for is still not available for some reason.
no,
Don't know why.
you haven't heard of whether he's a
Two things. Can I just confirm on the bin? Did we actually take a vote?
Yes.
We did. Okay.
No, we
We
didn't.
didn't. Okay.
Both.
These opposed, those in favour that we go ahead with the bin from the council, please show.
Right, okay.
That's clearly carried.
Okay.
I've been told by David he has obtained the litter picker, so he has now got it. He's also told me that he has also obtained the lock and the chain for the gate on Hill Lane. It's just a question of physically getting it off him.
On the one on the Hill Lane, are we giving the family access to the keys as well?
So the lock itself is a combination. The family who are involved are volunteering to help us with the opening and closing of the gates, so they will have that combination.
Because they came represented
Yes.
the issue with that.
So we have been liaising with them to make sure they're fully in the loop. The other thing, and it's slightly going back to what we're talking about with the bin, was originally we said we were going to put the notice in the Brent Knoll News to give people warning. With the fact we've got the antisocial behaviour happening, we have gone ahead and put the sign up, so that is now there, people are noticing it, because I've had some comments already. But what we were going to suggest was we move fairly quickly now, once we get the chain and the lock, to actually start getting this thing locked up at night. So are you happy that we do that? We'll still put a notice in the next BK and explain to people why we've done it and why we've moved a bit faster than we were planning to. But as long as you're all happy, we'll get on with that ASAP. Okay. Thank you. That brings us to audit staff group, which haven't had anything happen. Working group for the shop, nothing. Policy introduction and updates, regulations, standing orders and code of conduct.
Because it's the start of the new council year, we need to just re-adopt the existing policies for those three things, because that is a statutory requirement. There's no change, so if you were happy with the previous one last year, there's no reason not to approve this one.
Mr. Chairman, I propose that we adopt items A, B and C, which are our policies which have no updates, and they're exactly as they were before, that we re-adopt them. A, B and C.
Okay, all those in favour, please show. That is unanimous. Thank you. Somerset member report, I'll keep it brief. There's no real change on the finance. Again, just a reminder in terms of the Boundary Commission review of seats, that the consultation starts on the 3rd of June, so hopefully by the time we have our next meeting, that will have been sent to us, but it won't be on our agenda. So we might have to look at that in July. The couple of other things, I mentioned at previous meetings that the council was selling off a number of commercial assets. We're currently, Somerset are in the process of selling C Block, which is the very attractive 1960s tower block that forms part of the county chambers. That's being sold to an organisation that actually redevelops office buildings into accommodation, and it's going to be designated for what they class as key workers, so it will be nurses, policemen, all those sort of professions that will have a base potentially in Taunton. So there'll be a sum of money that comes to the council, but it will also help meet some of the housing targets as well that we'll be going through. Because at the moment there's A, B and C blocks. So the A block is the one that you always see on the news, which is a very attractive semicircular building. B and C block are the horrible 1960s tower blocks that are around the back. Also, we've just been updated that Bridgewater is, you may be aware that the previous government gave I think it was £23 million to what was Sedgmore at the time on the Bridgewater town deal. Part of that was to do with regenerating the dock area in Bridgewater. That is now progressing, so hopefully works will be coming on to that before too long. That includes there's some rather derelict old warehouse buildings around the docks, which are going to be potentially redeveloped into both commercial and residential. So hopefully that will be moving forward shortly.
And what about the old Sedgmore offices?
They're still fully occupied because because basically what's happening is as the number of staff are reducing at Somerset, they've brought in other organisations, so the police now have an area within the building. There is some care worker accommodation there. A whole floor has gone over to Somerset Social Care as well. So what was a fully district building is now a whole series of different. Again, the previous government had this sort of one-stop shop idea. They wanted to bring all these things together. It's starting to happen across the county now as the buildings are being rationalised and all the authorities are sort of trying to save on overheads. Happy to take if there are any other questions on Somerset stuff. Okay. Finances.
Financial report, basically, we've got the statutory payments for May 2025, which are those that were agreed in March to 4123 minutes. That's the statutory payments that we make each month to contractors, staffing costs, etc. TV Sports and so forth. So just need a resolution to approve that, if I may.
Is there a proposal? Thank you. All in favour? That's carried.
Thank you. Variable payment listing there. We've got Richard Young's internal audit fee. He obviously increased this year, £50. It's usually 25, and then quite sure how he arrives at such a low figure as 25. Anyway, he got up to £50 this year. So that he did do a bit more work on ours anyway because of the circumstances. Area and signs for local storage, it's local signage, £196.80. 32 of that is VAT.
So basically that was the dog signs.
Dog signs that we've already got in place now, and the opening times for Hill Lane. So one more dog sign still to come. And then obviously we have Mark Fiddis, the tree removal on the green, which was a one-off cost of £360, including £60 VAT. So now there's a couple of other payments there which are not on the list, and I feel that we need to consider them. One is Amanda, because she purchased one or two bits and pieces, including a new broom of £13, and also Charlie with the cost of the annual parish meeting, £4.95. So, although they're not on the agenda, I think they're such small amounts and the costs that have been incurred by councillors. I think it would be wise to consider those as. And you won't go to vote on that one, I'm afraid.
I wasn't voted.
Okay, can I have a proposal then?
That's all there as payments.
Okay, any abstentions? Okay, any against? I think that's it.
Okay, now one other matter, South membership. South have increased their costs, they doubled their costs this year to just over £600. Now, it's not a payment this month because obviously it's not on the agenda, but some councillors created a bit at the last meeting that South had on Zoom. How did they justify doubling the cost? They've had some financial issues apparently at South, and they seem to be asking the parish council to pick up the tab for those financial issues. Now, we've got a choice. We can either consider continuing our membership of South, or we can decide not to continue the membership based on what information we think we get from them.
What's the implication of not coming forward?
One of the main things I think is training. We do have a number of training events offered to us during the year, which are some of it's quite good training. Most of it's online, Zoom training.
Is that £600 off?
If you looked at it in those terms, it probably isn't. But on the other hand, there are times when I do go back to South asking them for their advice on legal issues that have arisen. I don't know what you feel, Bob. I mean,
I think, as I said, there is the sort of legal support. There's then also a number of our documents, like our code of conduct and stuff, are all based on the SALC model, which is based on the national model. If we weren't part of SALC, then I think we wouldn't be in a position to. They have rights over their documentation, so we would have to not use that word to withdraw from SALC. It's there as anything, as a professional body, as a support to councils, and it's it's one of those, I think you don't probably get a huge amount of value from it all the time, but when you need and you have a problem crop up, then suddenly they are not going to help.
I have written to SALC and I've said to them that the fact they put their fees up by twice, effectively double this year, they cannot take necessarily parish councils for granted on that. They can't just put prices up and not actually justify them. And I understand that there are some councils that have pulled the plug on them, which of course only enhances their financial problems. It doesn't make their problems any easier.
Exactly. I mean, how do you justify doubling your body, your finance bill to a body that's using local council funds? So that that's a contradiction. So I do think at the moment we should protest and put the offer on the table that we will withdraw and see what they come back with, because there's no way they can justify doubling. It's £300 of local money which we can use elsewhere, and I think that's just very unfair.
I think, it'll need to go on the agenda for next month anyway. In the meantime, as you say, if we go back to them and say, look, it has been already existing, members have said they have real concerns about the increase. How are they justifying what that increase is?
Yeah.
And then we can
Because
make that decision.
what stops them doing it again next year?
Yeah.
There's a culture at the moment, whichever industry you're in, that because we've all been used to paying more money for stuff, everybody's putting up their fees. Tell me why an organisation like that suddenly needs twice as much money. It just doesn't add up.
I would ask them to come back with a justification for their increase, which I can then put before the council.
And I think we could be fairly strong in saying we are considering our position.
Well, I think we're pretty clear about that already, actually, from the correspondence I've had with Sam Windsor. So I'd be interested to know what. I do know Lyncham decided to go with it to carry on.
The other issue I've got on that is if these guys can double their money, what stops all our other contractors doubling their bills to us? And all of a sudden, we've got twice as much expense going out, and we're getting nothing back in return. We know we're going to get more expense from the council, from our friends in Taunton. So, and we're fairly close on our funds already. I think we've just got to play a little bit harder and push back. Yes, there's probably an increase, but it can't be double. Inflation's only running at 3%.
Okay.
Go back and offer 3%.
I'll do that.
Yes.
I will do that, ready for the June meeting. A couple of other things. I circulated the monthly budget, obviously, which is now a statutory thing that we do. Obviously, not a lot on it for the first month, because it's only April, basically.
There'll be £300 less.
Well, obviously, we will need to just keep that budget running through the year. It's too early to do any forecasting yet, so that's all blank at the moment. By the time we get to sort of September, we can start to really forecast things and you start getting more information on it. But at the moment, you're just getting that monthly, just 1 month inwards. And that's obviously got the council reserves on there as well that we currently have. That will change because come June, we'll be paying for the work on the green. So our reserves will drop as a result of that. But that will be reflected in the budget for this coming current year.
Any other questions on finance? In which case that takes us to the matters of consideration. Review of the annual parish meeting.
I don't know whether anybody has any comments to make. I think it went, we didn't get as many people this time around as we did on the previous one we did 2 years ago, this type of open questions. But I think, I don't know about you, but I think it was a worthwhile meeting.
Yeah. I think there was an overwhelming, with all the things going on, there was an overwhelming push about motoring. I think 70% of the questions were all about speeding and motoring in the village. So I think that's something we've got to consider. Do we put more emphasis about supporting those groups?
I think there were probably, one of the things I had feedback on was there was possibly a couple too many on the panel. That in fact, two of them probably didn't get hardly any pressure at all.
Yeah.
And that was probably unfortunate. Well, I suppose it's not surprising really, because the two people who got the least questions are probably where there's likely to be less questions. It's as simple as that. So maybe for the future, if we did it in a forthcoming year, we might think about the representation of the panel.
But just going back on the motoring thing, is it worth us holding, I'm going to use the phrase working day or working afternoon, and figure out what we can do and what is available to us? And because if it's going to be a reoccurring theme and there's nothing more we can do other than what we've done, then we need to be saying that to people, because it's just frustrating people.
Yeah.
And in that meeting there was a lot of frustration about the traffic. So one way or another, we've got to front it up and either say there's nothing more we can do, or there is more we can do, and that might need some form of working organisation.
Yeah. Okay.
And invite some of the vocal people into the room at the same time, and maybe get legal representation from the police force of what we can and can't do.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Just one thing in terms of the numbers, even though we were a bit down, I've been to a number of annual parishes this year in other parishes, and so far that's the biggest turnout I've seen anywhere. So, yeah. Anything on the API?
No, just operating, as I said earlier, pushing through the data where we've got it, in the hope that,
Do we know if anyone's been contacted yet?
I've been told they have, yes.
This is quite clearly.
Colin, have you had anything yet?
Pretty difficult.
Partial registration numbers. Check them off.
Registration bingo. Okay. Flood-related matters. We sort of touched on this earlier, but again, just to reconfirm, where the state of play currently is where we're waiting further updates in terms of quote and estimates for the works, both behind the church and the path going up the edge of Linham's Field. So hopefully, as soon as we've got that, we'll let you know. But regarding the flag, as I say, it's working on getting us some support grant funding from the River Authority. But until he's got that quote, we can't proceed that further. But he's doing some work behind the scenes, and as soon as we know anything, we'll tell you. Andy.
Just on that, the damage that the last floods did to the wall holding back the church graveyard, if you have a look, the pointing in that is in places dangerously low. There will be, and I know it's not our problem, but we need to be talking to the diocese to get that fixed before it becomes our problem. But when it rains now, it pours through those walls, and it's not pouring through the channels, it's actually coming through the mortar, or along the top.
Certainly flag that to the church. I know they're looking at a number of projects at the moment in terms of the steps and everything else. So, okay.
Quotations.
Yes.
We've got two painting quotes from Andy Selway. One to do the telephone box, labour 590 and materials 160. I know it sounds a lot, but actually there's a lot of work on that telephone box.
I thought we already had the materials.
We've got some, but there may need some more. It's not enough. I've got a supply detail if Andy needs it from the official BT sort of paint supplier, so to speak. So that it's kept in keeping with, and of course naturally they're more expensive than normal paints. That's what happens.
And that's both internal and external, isn't it?
Yes, that's everything. And then obviously the play equipment is 1060 labour with material 640. So the whole lot is what?
And what's it? What is?
So you've got to apply one coat of primer to bare areas, apply 2 coats of paint to all areas, and 2 coats of stain.
£1,700.
Yeah, which is dearer than before, but not a lot.
Well, I mean, the bloke's got to earn a living.
Yeah.
It's quite a lot of work there.
And that's going to sort the graffiti out as well.
So I just need, I mean, we could go for another quote, but frankly, this guy knows what we need and what has to be done. And I think if you had somebody else, the danger is they wouldn't perhaps do it at the same standard.
Is he quoted for both of these jobs?
Yes.
I propose that we accept those quotations for those two jobs.
All
Get
those,
on with it.
all those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Co-option process.
Well, that's really just ongoing, isn't it? We've got something to be carrying, haven't we, this month for May. Obviously notices have gone up in the notice boards for the first vacancy. But yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a strange one because we've got two vacancies that came at different timescales. So I suspect that's probably, yeah. We've got one applicant for the first vacancy, and he's been sent an application out and he's returned it. So that's one. Obviously, the second one is the next one.
Just on the process of interviewing these people, are we going to agree a process, A, so it's not uncomfortable for the candidates, but B, that everybody gets an input onto it? How are we going to run that process?
Well, the way it normally works is that, of course, they put an application form in. I send the applications to members before the meeting where we discuss it. They come along to the meeting if they wish to. They say something to the council if they wish to. And then from that point onwards, you decide if there's a competitive situation, you decide which person you think is the most suited. And that's how it works. It's not an interview process as such. It's an application form plus attendance at the meeting.
Yeah, it's basically an election rather than an appointment.
I understand, but there needs to be a period where we can ask questions back of the individuals, doesn't there? Because on the candidate forms last time, there were a number of questions on there. The statements made, that would have been worth challenging with the individuals. Big open statements, if you like, Trumpisms, that just gave a very vague thing which would have been worth pushing and targeting to find out what they actually mean by it and how that would work with our culture, because we've already had a situation where we've had a dysfunctional parish council because we made the wrong decisions, because we didn't push back on some of the questions. That's all I'm saying. Is there going to be an opportunity for us to read the candidates and put the questions back to the candidates, either openly, which I think is very difficult for them, or allow them to respond before we go into the debate, so that we can have a two-way process? Or is that against
you can decide really which way you want to do it, really. I mean, I think having the candidates here, depends how many candidates we have, of course.
Yeah.
You know.
But you don't have to accept all the candidates.
No, you don't. You don't have to accept anybody.
So I think there just needs to be a way that we can challenge back on some of their application.
Yeah.
When it was COVID and I went through, there was an opportunity for councillors to ask me questions. And I felt that they got what they wanted out of that questioning. By just doing a written format, it's hard to get what councillors want out of that meeting. Because if somebody's coming in to just be disruptive or on a one cause, agenda item, then that's not what we need here, really. Is we need people who want to help the community and work with the community. So,
well, once we get to the June meeting, when obviously we may be able to have a co-option, at least one anyway, if not both, then I think, I'll send out the applications that we've had. If there's anything on the applications that you feel you would like to ask, then you can ask them. Simply, you can.
But what I'm saying, rather than bring them into here and ask them, which can be quite difficult for a candidate, is if there's a way that we do it in a timely manner so that we can come back, ask them a question, and allow them then to come back to us.
I think the only way, because the process itself, we obviously need to be as open and transparent as we can be.
Yeah.
I think what could be done is if Owen sent out the forms relatively early, if there are queries that members have, to raise them with Owen, he could then go back to the candidate and ask them to come back and
Yeah,
respond. So we could do it that way. I think.
Yeah.
To try that. I don't think we would probably be in a position to go down almost like an interview route, because otherwise it's
unfair on the individuals as well. But that sounds fair. It's just that on those papers you can write something very big and it doesn't mean anything really.
Okay.
Certainly, if I do that, I'll certainly do that. Send out the applications.
Any other comments or queries? Any updates on the post office?
Nothing received from the letter that I sent. Not surprisingly.
Okay. Are members happy that if we try and give them maybe another chase, but then we start going public, putting some public pressure on?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we talk rubbish, haven't we?
It's a bit harsh. Okay. Any matters of report, Jane?
No, I have been asked, who organises the village fete as to the activities that happen?
There's a fate committee which is part of the parish hall committee.
Right.
So if there's anyone who wants to do anything, get in touch initially with Eddie Fuller.
Oh,
If
okay.
they know Eddie, and if not,
I think the comment was there was very little for children to do. Why not have like egg and spoon races? And I'm just sitting here and thinking, well, the brownies and the guides, they do fantastic games when they're their activities. If they could organise, sort of something for children to do.
there is a definite effort this year to increase the number of
Right.
game stalls that people can go.
Okay.
The head is due to be doing children's games in the central arena.
Oh, right. Okay.
But if there are any contacts with, the guides themselves will be doing the green teas, so they're sort of up
Oh,
to their
they're
eyes
busy.
in
Right.
stuff.
Activities.
But if they were looking, if anyone's got contacts with guides and brownies, might want to find out if they want to do some games. So we'll certainly be pleased to get more of them. So,
I mean, those parachutes, when they have those out and have a ball on, kids all hold the
I think you should be doing it, Jane. You seem to know what about it.
Quietly, but anyway, yeah.
Colin's
Right,
doing it.
I have a word for them. Oh, yeah, Colin's actually.
It's so crazy.
no,
I think I might have said this before, but like Nathan's watch thing.
Yeah, neighbourhood watch on the agenda.
I was just wondering if there's any update on the signage for the railways.
I don't know. I mean, I sent Matthew a note a couple of weeks ago actually saying, have you heard any more from Samaritans in Western? I haven't heard anything from Matthew at all.
I thought the national the railways were
They are involved, but Samaritans have got to instigate it to some extent because it is their sign.
I'll speak to I've got.
Yeah.
I'll speak to
So you basically, the Samaritans and Network Rail need to agree themselves
right.
what it is they want to put and where. So,
could either of you chase it up, and then if you can circulate it
yeah.
to members, just to let us know what.
Yeah, I'll speak to Matt.
Okay.
See if he knows anything.
Colin.
It's important.
Nothing. The only question I want to. We did discuss or ask whether the rota could be placed on the parish council website so that I could just check when I'm doing it rather than. Can that be done? Could that be updated, please?
Yeah.
So that I can check it.
You need an alarm, don't you?
I do.
Your turn, Colin.
Yeah. I obviously need you control that.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm only a little old man.
Matt, no. Okay, I've got nothing to report, but just before we get to the end of the meeting, I'm going to sign the chairman's declaration of acceptance of office. I forgot to do it at the beginning, so I need to do it before the end. So,
Get caught up on it.
thank you.
Okay, thank you.
That's for me.
Nothing very good. No.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes the meeting of business, so we'll close the meeting.